So let's get back to this. So we're talking about pressure difference. If we say that somebody gets hit to the side of the skull, right, with the reason why you wear protective gear whenever you're playing baseball or whenever you're playing like football or any high impact sports is if you're if you're let's say you're at bat and you're dealing with a ball that can be thrown up to 100 miles an hour. They clock it at in the 90s, especially for the professional leagues, and you get hit on the side of the skull. There's actually an area called the pterion, and underneath the pterion is what we call the middle meningeal artery. So the meningeal artery is an artery that sits right on the underside of the bones, and it's in the epidural space, right, which is found above the dura mater, which is your tough plastic-like connective tissue. Now, if you get hit in the side of the skull, especially at this point, and it cracks inward, what happens to the artery? The artery is now ruptured. And so, because arteries have high pressure, you have to deal with a hematoma, concussion, and how fast would it be for you to die? Well, people that have this, so I had a student that gave me an explanation of, or an example of her friend who fell out of a truck, hit the side of their skull. The parents took them home and decided not to take them to the hospital because they had passed out. This is one of the signs. They passed out and they woke up shortly after and they said they were fine. So within a few hours, within the day, he passed away because they didn't take him in. They didn't think it was something that they needed as a fast response. The higher the pressure, the faster you are to bleed out and have complications associated. So if you know anybody that gets hit in the side of the skull, especially if they pass out, wake back up, drive them to the hospital. It's an emergency that you don't want to wait for. The lower you get into the spacing, the lower the pressure, the longer it takes for the symptoms to occur. So one of the things about CSF and the low pressure is if you shake a keiki and you tear the brain off of the arachnoid and also the pia mater and you rip it off, you cause bleeding. The blood vessels that are in the area bleeds into the subarachnoid space, and the buildup becomes progressive and progressive. And a lot of times, older people that fall down, the brain kind of tears off and they have intracranial bleeding. They will complain of the worst headache in their entire life. So you should definitely take them in. Sometimes older people, they don't remember that they fell, or maybe they fell and you know that they broke their hip. So you always want to check, okay, you check the hip, but you also check the head for any concussion because they don't always relay that they hit their head or they don't think it's an important thing. So when you hear someone say it's the worst headache I've ever had, and you know that there's some kind of fall associated, definitely take them in and let them know, hey, look, they fell down, they might have hit their head, and I want to know whether or not, especially if you're in the nursing field or in the medical field as a physician, anything. This is the reason why you study so hard for this, is because your family is really important to you, not just your patients. Your family, your patients almost become your family because they represent what you want your family to, I guess, receive in terms of care. The same way that you want your family and you want to protect your family, it's the same thing you want to do for your patients. So we're going off on a tangent, but here we go. That's the whole concept that I want you guys to get behind this. So let's move on to what the ventricles are. So what are the ventricles? So let's take a look.